The following program was made possible thanks to the generous support of our Kickstarter backers.
Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired.
Sup, Holmes?
Beware your host, Jonathan Holmes.
Thanks so much, Sinistar, and thank you, returning Sup Holmes guest Jeff Luke.
Hey.
You, the Turtles, and you, Mark, and you, Sharif, new friends. Nice to meet you both. You are all working at Tic Toc Games, creators of Adventures of Pip. Is this correct?
That is correct. Mark is the genius that came up with the concept of Adventures of Pip. I just run the company, so I just asked him, what do we need?
Create.
So you are the creator of Adventures of Pip as a concept, Mark, and Sharif, you are the boss. Are you the boss of Tic Toc Games?
I guess I'm the boss of TikTok. Jeez, it's crazy.
Oh,
Yeah. I like executive producer of Adventures of Pip better than boss of TikTok, though. Like this sounds. Such a collaborative team, honestly. Like I work for them, you know. It's like it's a very flat org. So there really is boss. There's just kind of like self-governing to make sure the product succeeds. So it's a good group of them. You know?
How many people are in the company?
Oh, we're like 20 people now, but we're like working on a lot of work for hire stuff, and then a lot of incubation of original IP ideas. And like we've done a bunch of little tester things. Pip is our biggest, attempt at making our own original IP. So but we were always kind of trying to do Pip on our own before the Kickstarter kicked off, and we were just taking whatever money we could save from all the work for hire stuff and just shoving it right into Adventures of Pip. And then when it got to critical mass of content, we're like, let's put it on Kickstarter, see what happens. Sean and the team over at Yacht Club killed it, out of the gate with their Kickstarter. Way Forward had done their Shantae Kickstarter shortly after that. So both of the guys, Goldie and Sean, both kind of gave me a lot of advice as to what we should do with our Kickstarter. We put that up. First time we didn't even come close. I think it was like we were asking for 90.
There's also a lot that we could have done better that we did on the second time around. That we have a playable demo this time. We got it out to the press. A lot of the big names played it, so it really helped out pushing it to our Kickstarter.
I'm sorry. I was excited about the game first time around, and I remember I should have reached out to you, but this is how video game blogging often is. You're doing 20 things at once, and you've just got to get the story up, blah, 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 blah. Like just getting a nice image that I thought, oh, people are going to want to play this. I'd look on the Kickstarter for it. I'm like, there's a lot of little images that are good, but like a big, pay attention to me image. Then the second time around, you guys nailed it, clearly, because it got funded, but there was so much easier to read what the game was, so much easier to get a feeling from it right away. And that's why you got the money, I think.
I think you're totally right. I think one of the things, it kind of I think we got a little surprised that when we did it from the first time, so we kind of looked back at that core gameplay mechanic again. And, we actually brought Sean, from Yacht Club over. We had Jeff, when he was at Way Forward, come over too. And we were brainstorming a bunch of different ideas as to what we could do with this gameplay to even make it more engaging to players, and how do we make it so that evolution's not such a novelty, but actually critical to the core gameplay, right? So we started making the evolution really part of the puzzles for Adventures of Pip instead of something that was just kind of happening if you got hit.
It really simplified the gameplay from our first run to this run. At the same time, we did packs, which was completely awesome. That's something that neither of us had done before, and that really got it out to the people. We got a lot of feedback from everybody on what they liked and didn't like about it, and it was really awesome. A lot of positive feedback.
Yeah, I would imagine. It seemed to be one of those games that you'd played it, so you knew. And I kind of felt, I imagined you were frustrated because I was frustrated because I wanted the game to succeed first time around. It's like if people knew how fun this was, then it would be backed. But it's so hard to communicate that through words and pictures. You really have to play it. But before I get too far ahead of myself, people might not know what Adventures of Pip is. So maybe we'll do a quick rundown of that. What is this Adventures of Pip?
You want to?
I'll give you the quick rundown because I did this a million times during PAX.
Yeah.
Wait, let me talk to you for 5 seconds. So, What it is, pretty much you start off as a single pixel, and as you defeat enemies, you absorb their pixels into you, and you evolve into a higher resolution character. And the more resolution you are, the more different abilities you have. So it's kind of like an evolution of, gameplay abilities that you see throughout, gaming in general. And that's the core element that we brought into the game. Then from there, we built a story around it, and just tried to make sure we refine all the controls.
Ah, got it. And it's a side-scrolling adventure game, action game.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
We should say that first time. We'll leave with that next time.
Well, again, because we don't have a visual, people are.
Oh, we did. Stand up real close.
Oh yeah, he's got the shirt on, which is awesome.
You start off as a single pixel Pip right here.
And are you the designer of that artwork, Mark?
I work together. We have a lot of pixel artists also in the company. So me, another guy, Elazar, who also worked with me on Boyna's blog, he helps do some of the pixel designs. And so we work together and just try and come up with something that's most appealing. So everybody in the office also has feedback, like, yeah, I don't really like that one. I don't like that. Okay, one more time.
I think it was
this.
I think Kathy at the end that took all the evolutions of Mario over the ages, and put all of them next to each other and said, it should feel somewhat like that, don't you think? And I think everybody just at that point was like, yeah, can you make it?
I was already happy with the middle stage Pip, and then she's like, it's got too many pixels, or it's not enough. And I'm like, okay. I did. I'm like, you're right, this is better.
It's so hard to know, isn't it? Every time you do a sketch, if it comes across somewhat like you imagined and you get some feeling from it, it's easy to say, or it might be, I can speak for myself, it's tempting for me to say I did it. Like just the other day, I was reviewing a game, Devil's Dare, which we're going to give codes away for on this very show. A great game made by Secret Base. Conrad Zimmerman and I make a cameo in the game. Very nice pixel graphics. I wrote a review of that, and it all got erased. And I was like, my precious review. Oh, it was so perfect. Second time I wrote it, it didn't totally suck. The first time, turns out, it did. I found the original version. I'm like, God damn it, what was I thinking? You never know. The second draft could lead to the third draft. And how do you know when you're done? Do you feel like you're done now with the visual design of Pip as a character? Or do you feel like you still might iterate from here?
I mean, getting feedback from other people as we did our Kickstarter, there's some people who think, oh, I'm not quite sure about this thing or that thing about Pip 3. So there's things that we change with animation along the way. As far as visual design, it depends on, we still want to give players the ability to change outfits and stuff like that. So depending on how we apply that is maybe something we'll do when it comes to design. But we're definitely close to a stopping point on his look.
Sure. And how do you decide when you stop? How do you go about that?
When Steve says, look at the watch.
I love Mark because Mark is a perfectionist, and one of the reasons why he's one of the best at what he does, and especially in terms of art direction, is because he does iterate. And it's one of those sometimes that you have to take the pen out of his hand and just say, we only have this much more time. We need to focus on all the different pieces.
That'll do.
So that'll do. But you have to know it's that 80-20 rule. I'm sure a lot of people say it, but it takes about 20% of the time to get 80% of the quality, right? Mm-hmm. And it takes another. I'm sorry, did I say that backwards? It takes 20% of the time to get 80% of the quality, but then it takes another 80% of that time to try to get to that last 20% of the quality at the 100% mark. And that's where you have to kind of juggle a little bit. It's got to be good enough that it really stands out. It's got to be the best it can be, but at the same time, it can't be at the expense of everything else. Because it has to go to, you have to spend that time with level design. You have to spend that time with, sound. You have to spend that time and I mean, we've got Jeff. He came up with Shantae, Pirate's Curse. As soon as he wrapped that project, he came over to help us with Pip, which is great. And Jake, obviously, from who did Shovel Knight and also Shantae, is doing the audio for this as well. So, we really want to make sure that we're investing for the best across the board, So that's sometimes why the pen comes out of Mark's hand, is so that we can put it in other places, put that in.
You don't make it sound easy. this video game making thing, and it's not just a couple of people where it's very clear what the rules are, and people are pretty much just having a two-way conversation about what's being made. You're managing, and not a huge team either where you have tons of money. You're in this mid-space. It sounds like
Oh yeah.
Everybody has
sounds
multiple.
hard. Sounds like in some ways the best of both worlds, but in other ways not. Some
It's
ways,
the worst and the best. You're right.
Yeah.
Like
sounds like it.
everybody stretches. You know,
Yeah.
everybody stretches a lot.
If I could spend my entire time just focusing on animation and character design, I could end up doing that. But at the same time, I still have to work on the game's overall flow and some level design. At the same time, Jeff has to help me out on that stuff, so he'll jump in with some boss designs and still help out all the level designers, figure that stuff out. Sharif even jumps in and says, I don't like this mechanic, or we gotta bump up this mechanic, so.
I say bump it up. Too.
Bump it up.
Hey,
What does it mean to bump it up? Just make it bigger, make it more expansive, make it.
can we change that sound effect? You need this one?
Yeah.
It really is. It boils down to, look, we're losing focus off of play control. Because these guys will get in the weeds on something, and then all of a sudden it'll be like, this is really hard for me to control, guys. They'll be like, the immediate reaction is, you suck. You should be able to play that. Come on. And then they'll pick it up and they'll be like, maybe he's right. Oh, okay, let's tweak that. So they'll go back and they'll tweak it, and then sometimes I'll look at something, and it's for me, a lot of times it's the first time I'm looking at it. And, something might not stand out in the background. That's something that you can interact with, but they see it every day. So, like, bump it up might mean, like, hey, can we up the contrast on the things that you can interact with, just because I'm losing it in the background.
There's also important things like our main focus of the game is about evolving and de-evolving to get through different areas, because the overall theme is that it doesn't matter what evolution you are, you're always important. And that's the thing that we want to get across story-wise in the gameplay. And so when we put in a new mechanic, if Sharif sees this somehow isn't tying into all the different evolutions of Pip, then it's something we got to think about and make sure that it works into it, so that it's not just some bonus throwaway mechanic.
Oh, gee, do you know how hard this sounds? Really? So, you've got passion and inspiration, and you're coming up with all these ideas, but someone else who you work with and you care about and you respect their opinion, they have to have an overarching critical eye and then nitpick and tear apart and then start over, and then where's your inspiration? Because now you're self-critical and thinking about, did I screw this up? And I spent an hour just doing this little mechanic. Now we have to toss out and then back to, but be inspired again and don't worry about it, and then criticizing again, and Jesus Christ! You guys, you've been doing this for a while, I assume. It seems you talk about it like it's normal, like, oh yeah, everybody spends a week working on creating this amazing thing, only to have to start over again and again and again. It's not. Most of us don't have to do that, but he signed up for this, and thank God for that. I forgot to get a little bit more about what each of you have worked on in the past. Jeff worked on, last time Jeff and I talked, he was at Way Forward, and he was working on the regular show game, I believe. And you worked on Pirate's Curse as well, Jeff? I didn't know that.
I was the assistant director on that one, and very proud of it. I mean, you guys, obviously loved it. So.
Yeah, the reviews across the board are really, really well.
That's kind of awesome.
I actually just emailed Matt Bozon inappropriately and said, how about a Shantae Bayonetta crossover? I'll arrange it. Get it done. He hasn't emailed me back. It's an abuse. I abuse my privilege of having all these people's emails. They must be very irritated. Anyway, great job on Pirate's Curse. What a great note to go out on. And did you already know that you were headed to Tic Toc while you were finishing up Pirate's Curse, or was that something that just hit you out of nowhere?
Pip, I was so impressed with what Pip was as a whole, and I just felt like I needed to shake things up a little bit, and I love the team over at Tic Toc, and I was like, hey guys, and we started talking, and just not really about that yet, just talking and talking. I was like, man, I love what you guys are doing. You guys are a great crowd, and I think I just need to be a part of a smaller organization again, because I came from this before, which was a smaller company then, and Wakeboard's big, and there's a lot going on there all the time. So I feel I can be more comfortable in smaller.
But I gotta tell you, like it's funny because Jeff is thought of very well over at Way Forward, and obviously like that's a team that I'm very close to too because I worked there for forever, I think. And then so I had to call Matt and Goldie just to make sure, I was like, hey, Jeff is flying over here and we're thinking about hiring him. Is that gonna be all right? And they're like, okay, yeah, that's good. That's if anything, it's like going to family anyhow.
Yeah.
So we were like. Cool. So, and it's funny because Mark also, well, we should continue talking about some experience, and that'll probably come up again. But yeah. So, why don't you tell them about?
Mark, you've worked at Way Forward, or you worked on A Boy and His Blob you mentioned before. What are some other games you worked on there?
I did a lot of SpongeBob games. I directed a lot of SpongeBob games. When I first went to Way Forward, I actually was hired on by Sharif. So I was there. I worked there for 10 years. 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he was QA because like he was going to Cal Arts in Valencia. And he was like really gifted. Matt loved him. Matt loved him right away. He was like, this guy's awesome, but he's going to school. And if we're going to have him do art, we're going to need him more available. So I was like, we'll just put him in QA at the beginning, have him kind of get familiar with testing games, knowing how game development works, kind of get him started off. And then when he's done, you could just start using him in backgrounds and animation and everything. And, sure enough, after...
It felt like maybe the first 1 year or 2 years, I started from QA, then went into level design, background art, animation, character animation, then directing. And then from there, the next 8 years was a mix between directing and art directing. So like Contra 4, I did the animation direction on that. I worked on the Aliens game with Adam Tierney. Then Boy and His Blob, I did the art direction. I worked with Sean on that one. I did a little bit of art direction on Blood Rain, and then again, just a bunch of the other games that we worked on. So,
wow,
it was really good. Yeah.
It's so interesting to see how Way Forward, having been around for a while, and mining so quickly from Cal Arts, it seems like there's Cal Arts, which is like this like hub of talent, and Way Forward is like siphoned off of it, and now it's just spreading out. There's this seeming like a Cal Arts game development scene with you, with Way Forward, with and you bring with you, if I were to try to put a name on it right away, this kind of passion for the innocence and love of video games. And I wonder, then there's Skullgirls, Mariel Cartwright from Cal Arts as well, who has this just kind of like diehard passion for just what video games are in their purest form. It's great to see this blossoming. I hope it becomes part of what people think of as what what indie games can be, because indie often carries with it this kind of idea of, well, it's serious, it's gravitas, it's trying to move the medium forward in a way that's legitimizing. But that doesn't have to be indie. It can be just like, I love the pixel jumping on the guy, which you guys are doing. I couldn't be happier about it.
He was a Renegade Kid. Those guys are indie through and through, and they make like classic old school style games, like Mutate Minds and all that. And the guys who made Delirium Mentium.
Sure.
Yeah, and Moon.
Yeah, Jules watched him. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah, Jules.
Yeah.
But very similar, and actually Jules works. He did art for Way Forward at one point too.
That's what wow, I had no idea, but it makes perfect sense. It's a very particular style that doesn't seem like it's a conscious decision for everyone to share this style, but you can definitely see images of it in each other. And Jeff, I noticed, I was just thinking about you, Jeff. You've got a theme in your work. You worked on Scribblenauts, which was about transformation in a lot of ways. You worked on the regular show game, which I quite enjoyed, which involves a bird just turning into a plane sometimes. And now you're working on Adventures of Pip. Was that part of what drew you to it? Is this idea?
All along.
Yeah.
It was like the
Transformation?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
I think it's all rooted in my love for Blaster Master.
This guy plays more Blaster Master than any other person. Like when we were doing the live streams, he's like, "I'm gonna do Blaster Master." You did that yesterday.
Yeah.
I still can't beat Blaster Master. I don't know how anyone actually beats that last level. Like,
Jeff will have you play Blaster Master with him until you guys beat it together, and you know.
And then we'll high five.
You could have.
is that a true promise? You'll really do that, Jeff?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, man.
E3.
For people who don't know, Blaster Master, you fall through spikes. Like normally, and I don't know if you're taking this into account in Adventures of Pip. Oh, if you do this in Adventures of Pip, I'm going to be so scared and excited. Because normally you fall on spikes, and it's like, that sucks. You better jump out of the spikes. It's a punishment, but it gives you the opportunity to right that wrong. In the last level of Blaster Master, you just fall through spikes and then fall on more spikes. And you're like, I just hate spikes, the game. That's all I do now. I've never been able to get through it. I've been playing it ever since it first came out.
The worst part about that last stage is you can actually use that as a shortcut. There's like certain paths you can take where you can fall through and like on purpose damage yourself to go through like rows of spikes to get to the exit quicker.
Really?
That's me.
Yeah, I know.
Strategic suicide.
Yeah.
Huh, could be interesting. And Sharif, what games have you worked on in the past?
Oh God, I've worked on a lot of games. But it all almost just a giant blank right now. I worked on the original Shantae for Color Game Boy with Matt and Jimmy. Yeah, like that's showing you how far back I go. I worked on Extreme Sport like with those guys when they first came out for Game Boy Color and Godzilla Domination and Game Boy Advance, and then that was like that way forward. I think I stopped at Spy vs. Spy for GameCube. That never launched. But that's a long story. So then I went to Sony Pictures, and I got to work on the Ratchet and Clank franchise with Ted Price and Ryan. And then I went to Disney from there, and then Nickelodeon. I was director of production for their video game group. And then I started Tic Toc.
Really? I had, this is crap. I didn't do my...
For some reason. But I was chasing video games. I was like, Ratchet and Clank, we could work on that. Can I get that title? And so that was like the hardest title I think I ever had to do, and I only had to meet with Ted Price once. Or actually twice. But I totally fell on my face on the pitch. I was like, Ted Price. Like, okay, you'll have to talk about what you want to make. So I pitched him the game, and he was like, I think this is going to be fun. I was like, okay, cool. So then the next time I saw him, it was like beta, and I was bringing him the game, and he was looking at me and like, I haven't played this yet, and you're bringing me a beta? And I'm like, yeah, I know. But I mean, we have been working our butts off pretty much like nonstop. So when he played it, we were like pretty confident, and he was like, this is not bad, which it was way better than I think any comment he usually says when he's first playing like beta. And then that was it. It was approved, and yeah.
For people who don't know, who is Ted Price?
Ted Price is the CEO and founder of Insomniac.
Right, who have made a lot of video games. Popular ones.
Spyro, Resistance, Sunset Overdrive. That's his studio. So I mean, he is the pickiest man when it comes to his IP. So
yeah. And I'm sorry, just in case I didn't hear it right, which Ratchet and Clank game did you work on?
Actually, the going mobile version of Ratchet and Clank, which was like the first version of Ratchet and Clank that was made. But it was also another like pixel art game too. We made like basically a homage to Bionic Commando, which not an easy one to do back in the day because like I think. I was trying to like basically make a Game Boy Advance game on a mobile phone, right? And it ended up winning like IGN gave it like best mobile game of 2005, and like there was a bunch of other kind of cool accolades. It was at the same time that Up Your Arsenal Dread Zone was going through for the console, and at the time IGN reviewed it, it said that that game was truer to the Ratchet and Clank franchise than Dread Zone, which was Deadlock. The Dread Zone was the name of the place in Deadlock, right? Okay, cool. So,
Wow.
that's way to correct me. It's like straight. Oh no, sorry.
That one I just
How many years total in the industry, Sherry? I'm trying to thinking about. Wasn't the first Shantae? Was that your first game?
That was not my first game. Actually, I started at Way 4. I left the army back in like 1999 or something like that, and then I started making coffee for everybody at Way Forward at like $8.25 an hour, like, to show you how and by then like we had just signed the first Color Game Boy title, and I was working on like some of the cash crop titles that we had at the studio at the time, but Boldy started giving me the Game Boy stuff to look at more and more, and then after Extreme Sports came out for Game Boy Color, which I helped on a little bit, not enough. Derek Tutilli was the producer on that one. Matt basically asked for me to be the producer in charge of all the Game Boy stuff. So I ended up getting all the Game Boy stuff after that, and then pretty much almost everything else in the studio started running through me except for Planet Hot Wheels. So like all the WWF for Color Game Boy and all that. Scorpion King, Wendy the Witch, Every Which Way, Wendy, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, like all these kind of like, but all of them were like, if you remember Nintendo Power magazine, you can remember back all of it there. I mean, these things would get like full page. Back in the old days, they would say stuff like, you know, most underrated game, you know, in 2001, right?
That's often from where I sit. Way Forward is often known for. And I talked to Matt about this too, and it turns out I was talking about a lot of your games when I was saying this. This game shouldn't be this good. Oh, Way Forward made it. Oh, I guess so. Yeah, like makes sense. The Thor game that Austin Idensmith worked on as well. Just like, why is this Thor game good? Oh, Way Forward made it. That's often the reputation you have, and yet you've all, and you particularly Sharif, you've worked for some of the biggest companies in the world in terms of video games, and you decided to go solo. What motivated you to do that?
Just because you could end up getting really stuck making what everybody else wants to make, and you never get a chance to really make what you want, you know? So, I mean, honestly, like, the really cool thing about this is, like, I have a great team that pitches me incredible ideas, you know, and I get to say, I like this. Let's go after this. Let's spend the time. Let's not compromise the quality. I mean, some of the things that I really like. Way Forward is a good example of this too. It's like, you know, in the case of these licensed IP games, you know, you could just treat it like a cash crop and just try to make something, you know, and make a profit off of it, or you can try to make a high quality product, right? So they push and push and push, and sometimes you have to fight your own publisher to the argument about just give us a little bit more time. Well, this has got to go day and date with the movie, blah, 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 blah. So you end up making you have to cut corners sometimes. You have to, like, compromise your game. Shovel Knight is a fine example of an uncompromised game. You know, it's a game that doesn't cut corners. It focuses on quality. It pushes quality, you know? And that's what I want. That's what I wanted in the studio. So that's, I think, why we started this.
And I think that's why you get a lot of those unexpected titles from Way Forward that ended up being good, is because everybody who directed there, who worked there, they want to make really cool games. And even if you're stuck under a license, that's not going to stop you from trying to make something good out of it. So it's not something that we shorthand, and same thing at Tic Toc is, you know, even when we do bring in some licensed titles, we put all our effort into it to make it the best game we can.
Absolutely. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's like you said, this shouldn't be that good. Oh, it's good because, you know, Way Forward made it. That's the voice that we want to have, you know, too. It's like, oh, this is quality. Why is this so good? It's because the guys over at Tic Toc
People actually love what we do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
While you were talking, I was remembering Mike Kasperzak, who does Ludum Dare. He worked on a Barbie game that actually kind of kicks ass. Secret Agent Barbie. You guys can look.
Barbie game is
Game. Yeah. And the guys at Crazy Viking who made Volgar the Viking, they're kind of in your wheelhouse as well. They worked on the 3DS Shinobi game and a bunch of Game Boy Advance. They were competing with Way Forward, but always really like respected what you guys were doing. I wonder if you could, man, I'm suddenly wanting like a super, like a We Are the World of you guys. Like, just getting to making a thing. That could be pretty incredible. How do you go about choosing, Sharif, who you're going to have in the company? What do you look for? What do you not look for in terms of getting people to work with?
That's a good question, man.
Dark.
Nobody's ever asked me that question before.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, that's so funny. Like, I guess talent, number one, right? You have to make sure they have the talent, right? When Mark, he actually reached out to me too when I started TikTok, and he was like, I think I can help your studio, here's what I could bring, And I remember Mark, of course, obviously from when we worked together at Way Forward and in the beginning, and just his growth was just ridiculous. Like, I did not I expected him to be great, but I didn't expect him to be incredible. I mean, I thought, he's kind of got this kind of relaxed spirit to him, he's a little bit chill, right? But man, everything he was putting out was just really, really good. So, you see the quality that they put out, and it's obviously reflective of their talent. Everything that Jeff ever did was amazing too. And sometimes, like, we find these guys, like, we seriously have a guy that graduated from Berkeley with a degree in math, right? So he's super smart. He's been programming. When I knew him the first time, he was 17 years old, and I knew of him, and he was programming games. And then he vanished. He went to Berkeley. I remember him going to Berkeley and getting this degree in math, but then all of a sudden he vanished. I posted on Facebook to like 1,000 friends or something, like, I'm looking for a good programmer. If you know a good game programmer, let me know. And this dude that vanished was a fisherman in Alaska for, I don't know, 6 years or something, catching salmon by the thousands of the pounds.
It's like Rambo. You have to go out into the woods to find him.
and he, like, he comes back and he's an amazing, amazing programmer. And so we start giving him a bunch of small things to do, and he just really impressed everybody. He actually, one of his mentors that kind of comes to the office rarely, but still talks to him often on Skype, is Jimmy Huey, the programmer on Shark for Color Gameplay. So he's kind of got like good coaches that are with him, but everybody says the same thing. Where'd you find this kid? This guy's incredible. So I think it just really boils down to talent, and we have a zero a-hole policy on the team too. Did I say that? Well, a-hole's not
that's the least of the swears we've got on this show. Jane Jensen, the creator of Gabriel Knight, was just like, "This fucking sucks."
Oh, okay.
Awesome. Yeah, she set the bar. I don't think anyone will be able to have any fun swears per episode as she had. Yeah, I miss her already. So you get people. They have to have talent. They have to be able to work as a team. This is not always the easiest thing in the world. Artists, and I went to art school, so I feel like I can say this without seeming like I'm talking about people other than myself. Not always the easiest to get along with. Oftentimes very focused on their work, not so much about social coordination, oftentimes very sensitive. I know when people say my drawing sucks, I feel like a terrible person for like a week. Programmers also, very focused on the work, not always open to having to think outside of the box as opposed to focusing on the craft of the code. How is it to coordinate all of these personalities?
It's surprising. I think it's surprisingly easy in this group for some reason. I think it might be like I've had a lot of difficult personalities I've worked with in the past and stuff, but like there is something about when everybody's collaborating on the title and driving the title together. I think Mark's creative direction has allowed for people to become invested emotionally at the end product.
And I went to art school too, so I went to CalArt, and half the artists or all the artists in the company come from CalArts too. So they're people I either knew from before, or people who have gone to the same program as me. So I don't think there's any problem in that situation. So definitely that. As far as working with programmers and stuff, being in the industry 10 years, I've learned to work with lots of different personalities, and so that's something that I figured out. Sharif, psychology major? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was a sociology major. I did have a social degree in college, but that was like so long ago. I don't know how much of that is still relevant.
He definitely knows how to talk to people and get the best out of everybody.
Yeah, but I really do think that there is something to be said when everybody is kind of like, they don't feel like their ideas are going to get poo-pooed without being, 100% heard, Like Mark solicits advice from the team. He goes and asks people. He's proactive about it. And because of that, everybody feels like they could say anything, to him.
Yeah.
It's just total transparency as to what their thoughts are. And that makes the games better, and it makes the team believe in it more, and it just kind of puts all the egos away, if that makes any sense.
And when Jeff came in, the amount of collaboration we do on Pip and on the other game designs we've been doing, it all works out really nicely. So,
Awesome. It sounds like the theme there was don't think about what other people should be doing differently. Think about what you can do to make everyone feel more inspired and feel comfortable and feel excited about doing this together, and that everyone belongs and everyone counts. It's not surprising that you were in the Army. Most of the people I know who survive the Army and get something positive from it, they're able to see it as this incredible teamwork opportunity and ways to coordinate with others and truly care about other people. While sometimes, sure, there's going to be difficulties. You're going to have to point out when somebody's doing something that might get them hurt, get them killed, what have you. But at the same time, it's all about the team. Seems like you've got that really in your DNA at this point.
Yeah, I think the studio does. I think everybody realizes we are only as strong as the sum of all of our parts. We're one working on this together. So, yeah, and the studio I think also kind of sees, we're doing. We have a bunch of other titles, and some titles, they understand they're working really hard to help support Pip too. We're signing this additional work. It's going to stretch us a little bit, but it's going to help Adventures of Pip. So they work harder to maintain the integrity of the titles that they're working on, but also know that the reward isn't going to be, we're going to have a big, pizza party at the office that day or something. It's going to be, we're going to be able to put Eddie on, Adventures of Pip for another week and get even more animation out of him for Pip. So I think everybody kind of understands that what the mission is, So wow, it's a mission.
Yeah, that's right.
And there it showed up. It's like ingrained. That's so funny.
And the name Tic Toc Games, it implies working like clockwork. And the way you describe it, it sounds like you've got this capacity for organization and allocation of resources where it's just like, yeah, I know he has to do this for this week. Now you're going to be over here and organizing human beings, which are these amorphous emotional blobs, and you never know exactly what they're going to do and who they're going to be that day. You've made it so people can be like well-oiled creative machines. Is that where the Tic Toc? That maybe I just gave you your new answer when people.
I like that.
That is exactly.
I looked at him. He's like, we used to say Tic Toc Games time to play, right? So it was, the idea is that it's time, to just kind of kick back and relax. But TikTok actually came from my wife of all people, because she understands. She works in games. She's pretty amazing. So she'll we were bouncing all these different ideas, and finally she said, TikTok Games, time to play. And I was like, that is awesome. And then other people were like, TikTok, that's a sign of being impatient. I'm like, that works for me. Because sometimes I'm in the studio, like, oh my gosh, when are we going to have this? But.
Well, and also, I know some people think the whole, cogs, is a bad thing, but we're all, in a way, our individual gear that keeps the whole thing together. If it was wrong, nothing works.
But not like a bad cog.
No. But a good cog.
We're good cogs. Like the one that
I never heard of any of this. But I thought it was like everything works like clockwork. Everything comes together nicely.
Which is what it counts. So that's perfect.
We're on the same page.
I like what you guys said too.
I think the Let's Play thing, perfect. So I'm very curious about what other games, because most people know you from Adventures of Pip, your Twitter icon. They can follow you on Twitter. It's Tic Toc Games, Tic_Toc Games.
It's just TICTOC Games. What is the hashtag or the @
At
Tic
TikTok
Toc
Games.
Games, just one word. But yeah, I mean, we do like Pip again is like really the kind of like vision product. You know, we've been around for 4 years, right? But I think if you look at what we've done in the past, we do a lot of things that might have been like more work for hire than what we were kind of setting out to do. Like the closest thing that we have to a game that represents what the studio will do is original IP, I think, is maybe a game called Pug Run, which is a game that Mark designed about my dog. You know, but it was kind of like
it's sort of our little step in the water to see how, how it feels, how it works out as far as getting things into the iOS store. So
yeah.
it is more of a test run.
And then Panda Pop is like a game that we did for iTunes and for the Google Play Store for a company called SGN, and it does extremely well for SGN, and the game is really polished. It's a really beautiful game. It's basically Bust a Move. It's a Bust a Move clone.
The bubble shooter.
Huh? Sounds good. Better than Snood, I bet. Not smack talking Snood, but I prefer the original Bust a Move myself. Huh? So it's so interesting to me from a business standpoint. You can make money off making small games that people might not have heard of. There's the hardcore gamer market maybe has never heard of these games, but they sell. And then everyone's heard of Adventures of Pip, or a lot of people have. It's on all the blogs that millions of people read, and yet that's the passion project, even though it's the high-profile project. It's the project that's a little bit more risky, it sounds like. It's an interesting switch. Do you think there must be a lot of people playing video games who just aren't talking about it very much? That's my guess.
I think there's a lot of. I think what's really weird is when the smartphones kind of opened up. I think that the market opened up to a different demographic of gamer. It became very casual gamer, right? Which was funny because those games are a little bit easier to build. I think because I think one of the things that make Pip challenging is you have to have really smart level designers because gamers are really smart, So your level designers have to be more clever, Whereas casual gamers,
they're not the ones that tweet as far as about the games. They're not the ones who would go out there, but they're the ones who play it. There's a ton of people who are playing like Panda Pop, but they don't go on to IGN and say, "Yeah, Panda Pop, I loved it." But we have a huge crowd of people who played it.
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, Teddy Lee of Sourdough Games, who worked on Rogue Legacy, like the most played game he's ever made is called Pizza Palace. And he's and I love Pizza Palace. He looks at you unironically. He's like, it's probably the best thing I've ever done. And I'm like, Rogue Legacy's pretty good, Teddy. He's like, yeah, but Pizza Palace, though.
Yeah, all those games are good. I think one of the things that again, it's about that. As a studio, we have a lot of integrity to make the best quality product. So when you play it, I think it's one of the best looking iOS games out there. I think everything that we do has definite look that says this is a really high quality game. I think Pip is gonna set a new bar for the studio though, and that's gonna be the new benchmark is that we'll have to do better than Pip on the next one.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what? When you're thinking about a game that you're going to be making for the enthusiast market, the vocal market, the kind of market that backs a Kickstarter versus the kind who's going to play on their phone, have a good time, what kind of different strategies do you have to go about in terms of making it appealing to the different audiences? Because my sense is people playing Pug Run, they're not defining themselves by the fact that they play Pug Run. But people who call themselves a gamer, it's like the games I play is a reflection of who I am, and if I'm not playing a cool game, then I'm not a cool person. So they may be more likely to shy away from Pug Run, even if it's really fun, just because they're like, I don't want to be the Pug Run guy. That's not what they were talking about at E3. I want to be talking about what everyone else is talking about. So you have to approach Adventures of Pip from an angle of well, how is this going to be something people really want to identify with as a part of their identity?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And it's funny because like, to you and me, we go, yeah, people don't identify themselves as pub run players, right? But to the pub run player, they identify themselves as a pub run player, right?
Really? That's awesome.
Which is hilarious because like we would go, that's so weird, I mean, personally, I go, that's a little bit weird, but like we've met like
Dog owners.
I mean, they're crazy about it, man. Like we've got like on any given day, we have 40,000 daily active users. There are 40,000 people today playing Pub Run, and the game went out 3 years ago. 3 years ago? 2 years.
Wow.
2 years ago. So it should have had its tail. It should have dropped a little bit by now, but it doesn't because people who like that type of game are going to go back and play it again and again and again and again. And that's what we think about when we're developing the game, when we're designing that game is who's this game for, right? And it's in the case of Panda Pop, it's not for me and Mark. It's for my mom. She played 2600. She played like Super NES games. And she had, Tetris on a Game Boy, the old school brick, and was playing it when she was bored, right? So it's like, how do I make a game for her? And that becomes Panda Pop, right? And you can see Mom all over that game too, like Mama Panda's crying when baby pandas are left behind. It's like all sorts of like, you're thinking about who's that audience, and you take it with the same amount of passion as you've done for games like. Like Shantae, like, Adventures of Pip, like, everything that these guys have worked on in the past, they're investing so much of themselves because they want to make it special for that target audience.
And like you said, with Pip, the audience that we're trying to do is made for us. And pretty much when we think of that type of game, it's pretty much what do we want to play? What do we like? What do we want to see out there? So, there's that part, and then there's the marketing part, and that's the part that we're still trying to figure out and learn as we go. And it's half of what we want to see. What like you said, what do people on the web want to see? Who are the more vocal crowd, and trying to get that balance in there. So there's been a lot of iterations from our first Kickstarter to this one. How do we simplify? How do we make sure that everyone can play it, but at the same time don't make it too easy where we lose our hardcore audience? So there's a lot of that plays into it.
And we call like Sean and other guys that have dev studios, and we bring them over and have them play. We have Ryan from Insomniac playing, the game at the studio too, checking it out. So
the first time Sean came over to the studio to play the game and made some notes, and after he left, I'm so mad. Let me explain this. It's as if Gordon Ramsay comes into your restaurant and he says something about it, and then you want to be super defensive on certain things, but you make those changes and you realize what things that, what was really important to change. And when he came back and he played it in PAX and he enjoyed it and he had a smile on his face, it was all worth it in the end and all that. So it's cool.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that seems to me so hard about this process. Like when and I've said it a few times already on the show, but connecting it to what you were just saying about making games for your mom, you can put yourself in your mom's shoes and kind of use your empathy to, and this is no easy feat either, don't get me wrong, but to figure out what that player base is going to want. To imagine being them and what their values are and how much time they have and what they identify with and enjoy. Yeah, so you can let go of that. Like I made a game for somebody else. When you're making it for yourself and it's kind of an extension of you, and then Sean Gordon Ramsay Velasco comes over. It's like, well, frankly, I don't think that you're on the right. You're like, oh God, I can only imagine how crushing that might feel. But at that point, you have to either choose. All right, do I think I do suck and that this is hopeless, or am I going to? Well, last week we had Ron Gilbert, creator of Maniac Mansion and Monkey Island, on the show, which was mind blowing. He's like 90% of my ideas suck. Like so much, and I get writer's block, and then I can't come up with an idea for a game for like a year, and I come up with all these prototypes, and but the difference is, are you the kind of person who takes that kind of feedback and then gives up, or you're the kind of person that fights harder for it? And it seems like you guys are all pretty proven to want to fight harder for it. Can you think of some of the more crushing reviews and how you dealt with them when you made a game and it was poorly reviewed, and how that felt? Can you think of any examples of that?
I don't think I've worked on anything horribly reviewed.
We've never had that experience.
I don't know if you guys remember EGM. Sean Baby had a column at the very end where he would pick really crappy games, and every so often he'd pick way forward titles that were like, bargain bin Barbie titles or something like that. And it'd just be funny to see his reviews on those things. But it's not because it was a bad game. He just had to pick something to make fun of. But I don't think I've had anything extremely negative. One thing that is negative, you see a lot of people on message boards. You'll always get some horrible people on there, but you just let it go, and it's fine.
Well, I mean, I think first you kind of diagnose what the comment is, right? You have to know, is this rooted in anything first? Is there something fundamentally wrong first? And if so, you start seeking out, I think, the opinion of other people that you trust, and hey, try this. Tell me, does this feel like? Tell me what your general thoughts, and they just, oh, this is great. Okay, does this feel sticky? Oh, you know what? Now that you mention it, it does kind of feel sticky. Then it's like, okay, maybe there really is a problem here, and we need to look at it. But it's about, everything is done in iteration. Game design is done in iteration. Development is done in iteration. Companies' growth is done in iteration. Design philosophies you iterate on. Because if you're not evolving, you're stagnant, and you're going to be left behind, right? So we have to look and say, I've had games that got shitty reviews for damn sure, and from that, you kind of go, okay, look, I got my teeth kicked in right now. Why? This game was really hard. This game was too hard. It was so hard that, I thought, let's separate the men from the boys right out the gate, right? And people hated it. And you're like, shit, well, how did I lose so many people, So then you start taking a look at your philosophy and say, okay, I'm going to ramp players into it, and then at this point we're going to separate the men from the boys, and then it's like, okay, yeah, that's working better, but it does good for reviewers because reviewers sometimes only play it so long, and then you got to know where they need to be challenged too, so you start moving that difficulty. But anyway, so you just have to know, you have to know if the feedback is actually warranted in some place, and then evolve as a designer, developer, producer, whatever your role is, to make sure that you are understanding that critique. Yeah.
I think, because the last game I did besides Shantae was regular show, and that scored not the best overall. It was very mixed reviews, and but I loved reading it all because I figured, that's the only way I'm gonna learn, and obviously there's some that's just straight up trolling. There's this game's stupid because it's got regular show. And you're like, okay, great job. But there's also a lot of good points. It's too hard. Hit detection is weird, which it was. It was a mess, but I had to go. So I like reading all of it because I think in the end, as long as you can take it and at least get something from it, you're only going to get better, right?
I don't think any of us have egos. I don't think.
It sounds like you have healthy egos that don't define yourself just by what other people think of what you did. You define yourself by how much you put into it with the resources you had, and are willing to say, yeah, I wish it were better too, and to not take just an oppositional stance. With licensed games, and I've already kind of barked about how great WayForward does with them, but I do think WayForward's non-licensed games tend to be even better because I imagine they're not being squeezed by a publisher. They're not being told you've got 6 months and that's it, and that's the cutoff. So I wish people. I preach that a lot, but I just seem like I'm colluding. Seems like I just like you guys and I'm like wanting to defend you, which is not something I'm supposed to do. I'm being told more and more.
if there isn't a publisher telling us when to stop, we'll just noodle forever. Probably the reason why eventually they have to tell us. But sometimes I just wish they'd let us, like in the case where there's like something that like Jeff clearly that stuck with him when he's talking about the collision detection on that game. That's something that you clearly don't want to go out the gate with something like that, because that is going to happen every time the player is interacting with the enemy. Every time the player is interacting with something, you don't want it to be something that kills your game. And
Sure.
you want something, that, and publishers sometimes force it out when it shouldn't. And that's the thing that, that's the thing I wish we could prevent with publishers sometimes. But
I brought this up on the show before. Alan Smithy. Are you familiar with the Alan Smithy phenomena?
Not putting your real name.
Yeah, that's right. I always wonder why there isn't an Alan Smithy, because I know so many developers have been like, they forced me to release it. It wasn't done. I don't really want to be associated with this. But and in film, when that happens, like The Birds 2, not directed by Alfred Hitchcock, is, I believe, written and directed by Alan Smithy, because he was miserable. But they forced it out.
Well,
that makes sense.
and they used to do that a lot with the Japanese developers on NES and stuff like that. Not because so much that they didn't want to be associated with it, but sometimes yes. But other times because they just didn't want their name known, so they'd go by a pseudonym.
Yeah. It's funny how we're in this internet age where there's so many people that are attached to being totally anonymous, and it oftentimes looks like the credits of Castlevania or Mega Man 2 when you're looking at a message board, like, Merman? Yuka-chan's papa? Who are these people? You were saying something before that sparked something in me, and I see this quite a bit with game developers, and it could be because I'm reading into things too much, but you were talking about how iteration after iteration and making sure you evolve and refining what you were before, but finding a place for every bit of feedback you get. That sounds like Adventures of Pip as a concept. You just like put your psychology in your game a little bit is how it's happening.
And I think that's something that we're trying to feed into the game storyline as well, is making sure that there's an understanding of, better graphics don't necessarily mean a better game. And that's sort of the tie-in to his character. There's little underlining elements of the game industry that tie into our story that I won't get into. It helps building off of your own experiences and tying that into a game. And it gives you a richer story that way.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's awesome when you play it.
It's something I pontificate about quite a bit, sometimes as a pretend bird named Arthok, that what you make, if it's for you and it's your passion project, it doesn't matter if it's a puzzle game or if it's Gone Home or if it's Gears of War, it's a reflection of who you are, and you're probably going to have that stuff leak in there. Even if it's a product made just for fun, it's going to be your idea of what's fun. And if it's a story, it's going to be your idea of what your story has been on some level, because what else do you have to draw upon except your own?
And the more you draw into that, the more that people who have the same experience will be even more attached to that.
Yeah. And with Adventures of Pip, it seems like you're looking at, well, we've all grown up watching these graphics evolve in this way. We've all grown up ourselves and evolved as people. We used to just be little one-dimensional 5-year-old blobs, and now we're like these fully featured adults with all these complexities. How does that feel? And wouldn't it be nice to be able to go back sometimes to a simpler, how could you use that simpler side of yourself to solve a problem that maybe the adult you would overthink and screw up? It seems, I know I said at the top of the thing, well, it's not like you guys are being artsy, but you're totally being artsy.
Yeah, that is, like you said, exactly the point of the story's moral, and we want to tie that into it. So, yeah.
Oh, awesome. I hope that can, because the problem, I thought a lot about your initial Kickstarter, and I don't want to focus on the negative, but it was something to think about, that people just, they see a game with a hook, and they see it has pixel-based graphics, dot art, as they call it in Japan, and they're like, oh, another one of those, and they just glaze over at this point. And this is clearly just not another dot art game. It's a game that's taking that theme and using it for a reason. But
yeah.
yeah, how has that been to have to deal with this dot art stigma?
Yeah, that was something that, like you said, getting negative feedback that we've been getting on the boards a lot is that people will just look at the game and they'll say, oh, that's Evoland. Pass. Go kill yourself. There's nothing retro about this game that is retro for retro's sake. It's retro to support the story that we're trying to, tell with it. So that's one thing that we want to make sure is underlining the entire experience that you're having with it. So it's nothing like Evoland at all, and that's something that a lot of people say. They say Evoland or some other retro style games, but it's not. It's really just there for the play mechanic and for the storyline, and nothing to do with just trying to be a retro game.
That's I know it's so hard though. Like if I want to do rap metal right now, people are going to be like, I hate rap metal, but I love rap metal. I just want to do rap metal. I'm not doing it to fit in with Fred Durst and or whatever. Yeah, but because so many other people did abuse the retro concept to try to feed upon people's nostalgia without actually giving them much, I think the turning point for a lot of people was Mega Man 10. Like Mega Man 9 felt like this inspired. They're doing this because they actually love those classic games, not because this is proven to make money. Then it made money, and then Mega Man 10 was like, we did it some more. And I personally like Mega Man 10 a lot, but other people are like, oh, they're just doing this for the money now. And yeah, we live in a 2014 where people think, oh, you're making a game that looks like Sega Genesis, you're in it for the money. How weird is that to realize out loud?
It's hard to convey across in the Kickstarter and to try and get people on board is because, hey, just make sure this is about innovation into a gameplay. We're not just trying to ride a bandwagon. So, that I think that's a hard thing in the Kickstarters that are coming out right now is a lot of people are trying to move away from supporting just these retro style games.
I think a lot of people are just moving away from Kickstarter right now. I mean, you had Aaron Holmes on your show before too, who did Nevermind.
Oh, sure, Aaron Reynolds.
Yeah, Aaron Reynolds. Sorry, I don't know why I said Aaron. That's an artist that we work with, Aaron Holmes. Aaron Reynolds.
And you're talking to Holmes.
And I'm talking to Holmes. All right, cool. So, but like Nevermind has actually just been rebooted as a Kickstarter, and they're actually asking for a lot less than the first pass because I guess they got some Intel support, and it's not getting as much traction as it did last time. And I think I don't know if just people have left Kickstarter for something else, but I mean, Aaron was really close the first time, and this time, it looks like it's going to be a race to the finish. So you should have on the show again.
Yeah, I should. I backed it the first time around with Collusion. So I haven't. I actually haven't written about it since, and I definitely should. I'll just have to do one of those fun disclaimers that make people feel like I love them these days. There was a guy last night on Twitter, not to talk too much about the ongoing saga between video game writers and people who are criticizing them, but I was talking to him on Twitter. And I'm like, well, I just respect a lot of people, so it's not necessarily, if I follow them on Twitter, that's not necessarily collusion. I'm just like, I'm interested in what they're doing. I don't really know them that well as people. I like their games, but they seem cool. He's like, yeah, you need to report that every time. And I'm like, really? Yeah? I respect you. If I write about you, do I need to do disclosure? He's like, absolutely. Anyone you respect, you need to, like, announce your feeling about everyone you ever talk about first. Yeah, so get ready for that. Get ready for people thinking that you are abusing your relationship with someone because you just, bought someone an egg sandwich at some point. We should do these fun questions. That'll be good. Questions good? That's good. Mr. LHD6 asks, when the character in Adventures of Pip is just a square block, can you only defeat enemies by jumping on them? Any plans for crossover characters such as Shantae or even Shovel Knight? A lot of Shovel Knight crossovers these days, but I don't think people are tiring of them at all. So, yeah, I guess a two-parter. Take it as you will.
Well, as far as the first part, it's not just so much what you can do as a single pixel Pip with enemies, but it's also the different obstacles that you'll have in the environment. So there's like springs that are in the environment. Depending on if you're first, second, or third evolution of Pip, only the first one can really bounce really high. So it's that in combination with how you interact with the enemies that gives you all the different strategies and level design. At the same time, we're going to have elements like water, where all three of the different Pips are going to have different ways of interacting with water. Where Pip 1 is going to just float on top like styrofoam, and the others can swim, and then the third one just sinks to the bottom. So, it's a lot of those that tie in with enemies, but not specifically how you kill, different types of enemies. Pip 1 really is more like a Mario type platform.
But he's totally hop and buff. Like he's not going to be able to stretch or anything like that. You're going to have to land on enemies to kill them for sure. So
yeah, so he is simple, but at the same time, with our story is explaining that even though you are simple, you still have your own advantages.
Gotcha. Suddenly imagining a Thomas Was Alone crossover to tie into
don't make that reference to Thomas.
that would be pretty awesome. I know Mike Bithell a little bit. Not that I'm colluding with him, but I have talked to him before. And if you want to get to know him, if you haven't met him before, that could be fun. Any ideas for a crossover? Or is it a little bit too early for?
Yeah, we're definitely doing something with the Shovel Knight guys. There's a crossover between Shovel Knight and Pip. Shantae is something that we had talked about loosely with the Way Forward team, but honestly, like, they're two different worlds. It actually, like, Shovel Knight has a better chance of being in Pixel Kingdom than Shantae at this point, because Shantae is, like, that IP is kind of more desert. Maybe if we ever have a region that kind of represents something that Shantae would be part of, we could talk about it, but there is still an idea that there will be some kind of Way Forward Tic Toc Games Adventures of Pip crossover, but we're not entirely sure what the brand is just yet. So look for it. We're still a ways away, but
we talked to a few companies. I think like Biggest Defenders, Hartforth, Alicia.
Bodie Lee. Yeah. No, that's not Bodie Lee. That's Time Spinners. I mix up all my fun people. I'm sorry.
What about the? Pip is going to be also in a Indy kart racer.
Oh, that's right. What quite a few. Is Tim from Braid in that? Am I remembering that correctly?
I think so. Yeah. And then Shovel Knight's also in that one too, and then.
No,
Oh, I thought he was.
No.
Oh, okay.
What we have, the way our game works is that you play through a level, and then after the levels, you can revisit the town. And if you save the key character in that level, they'll appear in the town. So our town is going to be flooded with all different types of characters, and they'll have different things to say. And that's where we can probably throw in some of our interesting interactions with, other villagers that are, from other games, or, we also did our Kickstarter where we offered people to be a villager in our town.
Oh.
And depending on if they ask for a 8/16 or a 32-bit pixel character, we have deeper interactions with that character. So, it'll be fun to see what people want and getting their feedback too.
Does Pip have a nemesis? Forgive me if this has already been announced, but I'm blanking on thinking about who his enemy is, who his prime conflict is with.
Well, the Skeleton Queen is the overall nemesis in the game, and so the game starts out with her taking your Pixel Kingdom home and just absorbing all the pixels out of it. And so what you're doing is you're going through the environment and just feeding her minions and taking those pixels back. And you can use those pixels to rebuild the town every time you visit it.
What do the skeletons use the pixels for?
She uses the pixels to create her skeleton army.
Got it.
Makes them out of pixels. That's why you can take the pixels from those guys to rebuild yourself.
Did you design those skeletons?
Mixed again.
Yeah, it's a collaborative effort. For whatever reason, they really stand out for me visually. Like Pip is, it seems like needs to be iconic, and therefore is sort of a blank slate character. I think of him as in the Link school of design, whereas those skeletons really just make you feel like they would chew on you. Like they've got those long, squinty eyes and their long teeth, and just great design on them. I was very happy to see that. Mike W asks, who among you would say has the most epic sideburns?
Unless you call this a sideburn so epic that it joined itself in the middle.
These used to be lamb chops, but now they became like a beard.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you actually like shaved, you would easily win.
Huh. So you win, Jeff. That feels pretty good.
Yeah.
You didn't actually see this. I was actually trying to grow something, but I'm Asian, so it doesn't really work that way. That's true.
I'm less.
I'm not Asian.
CS with 2010 asks, what are your inspirations for level design, and what is your process for designing an individual level? Yes, and thank you. This is a question I normally get to, but between the three of you, there's been so much to talk about. You can segue into games that influenced you in general, because I didn't get Jeff. I know a little bit from the past shows, but Mark and I wasn't sure what you guys grew up playing. So yes, inspirations for level design, process for designing an individual level, and then that ties into stuff you grew up playing. Talk about that too.
I don't know. I might be weird and different, but the way I approach a level design is I think of what I want to tell as far as a story to my level, and that helps me dictate what I want to do. As far as the obstacles that you face in the level, that's secondary to figuring out the path that I want the character to do. Then trying to figure out a little obstacle in there is easy. So I guess trying to make sure that I started off calmly, then give them a little bit of this and that throughout the thing. To me, level design is more so about telling a story than just giving them a challenge, because giving a challenge is something any hobby developer can do. But if you look at a Mario level versus someone who emulated the Mario engine and is able to create their own levels, you see a lot of that on YouTube. But you can tell that those aren't real Mario levels because they're just pure challenge and no story. Mm-hmm. So to me, that is the big. To me, it's best to start with a story, then add in the challenges.
I mean, and to kind of clarify, I think a little bit, and correct me if I'm wrong when I say this, Mark, but like, by story, it's kind of like, one of those evolution pieces also that become available to Pip, and why are they meaningful at that point in the level design, and how do you do it in a way that you give Pip that ability to, like, or the player to get familiar with that play mechanic before you start really challenging them and engaging them. So it's not like I don't even know how to explain it. Maybe if you guys kind of talk about the process a little bit about how levels get integrated into Pip and how you guys kind of like structure the ramping, and then how you guys go into pen and paper, and then once you block it out and everything like that, just so that people can like kind of understand, what you mean by that story piece a little bit.
Well, at least for Pip, I mean, we have different environments, right? We have like a forest, we have a swamp, we have lava, like a volcanic area. I mean, the first thing you need to do really is start from that. Say, okay, what type of things would you see in a forest? So we've got like beetles, trees, all those things you would imagine. Okay, yeah, I'm seeing this in a forest. And then what you can do is start to theme each individual. Like in Yoshi's Island, each level has a name, right? And it's usually significant to what is going on in that level. And they don't really tell a story per se in the level, but they do. That you can imagine a 5-year-old playing this game, right? He plays a game. There are certain parts of that level where they're going to be able to go back to you and say, let me tell you about this level. There was a guy, and there was these dudes on stilts, and they're walking through, and then these giant cannibals came, and they started, raining down on you, and they tell you the beat for beat of that level. If you can't do that, like if your level's not able to, have a 5-year-old basically tell you your level back, but in like a fun, exciting way, then I think you kind of need to look back and see what you can do to help set a theme in your level and also tell a story without words, basically.
What I'm getting from that is this concept of story as pacing, juxtaposition, putting elements that evoke a sense of either excitement, fear, mystery, maybe a tiny bit of frustration, a little bit of anticipation of what's going to happen next, and making sure that they're next to each other in a way that leaves you feeling like you had a beginning, middle, and an end of that experience, as opposed to just, oh, it just kept getting harder, or then I fell down again and again. That's not necessarily.
I mean, if that was like is a good example of a game where you can't really tell people what the level is, but it fits for that game, right? Because that's what the game is all about. It's about just challenges, and they're really great, super well designed levels. But in a game where we're trying to actually tell like a story, you really need those moments. Like I walked into a tall shaft, and suddenly the wall started coming in. I had to figure out how to get up it by being hit to and jump up, and there's these fire-breathing enemies and things that were spitting seeds, and I could jump off of it,
Yeah, you're describing. I've been thinking a lot about video game reviews in general and how they're just sad. They're mostly sad and not good. And I write them, so I just wrote one. I'm like, did I do anything good? I don't think so. Can I make this better? I hope maybe next time, but this has to go out. The guy's game's out, and I'm excited for people to read about it, and also the schedule's dead on Destructoid, so it's going out. But it's to be able to convey in a video game review, this is the story I had with a 2D platformer that has absolutely no dialogue. That would be an awesome video game review. And nobody seems to be able to do it. You can do it on YouTube by just showing you played the game and narrating over it. And there's a reason why PewDiePie is 100 times more well-known. 100? Yeah, 10,000 times more well-known and rich than I'll ever be. Because he's able to convey this story of this is what happens when you play a video game. And the fact that you guys are approaching it that way, I'm really excited for this Adventures of Pip game, guys. I'm feeling pretty optimistic about this. I think that the positive word of mouth and the Let's Plays it's going to get when it's finally out, or if there's any people who are still wondering, is this just another pixel art game or is this something special? I think they're going to be able to see that. I'm excited.
I think that's the key that we want to flesh out as we go further in development. Is the deeper story element into it, because right now you see the gimmick of the evolution, and you see the artistic look, but you don't really get a deep dive into why. So that is the key goal.
He's going to spoil something. He's going to spoil seeing.
That'd be exciting. I love spoilers.
But, like you were saying with reviewing, it is magical in its own way. One of my favorite movies is Ratatouille. Have you seen Ratatouille?
I've never seen it, and everyone talks to me about it. I've seen parts of it. My wife is a pastry chef, so like her middle name is Ratatouille. Everywhere she goes, it's like, "Oh, have you seen Ratatouille? This reminds me of Ratatouille." And she absolutely loves it, so she doesn't mind that. But I still haven't seen it. Tell me about Ratatouille.
Well, I mean, my favorite part of the movie is the end where the critic himself, he's got.
Oh my God! You spoiled the whole movie.
Okay, how can I say this?
Ratatouille came out in like 2006. I think you're all right.
He's got a very poignant dialogue at the end of the movie that is about reviewing and about product and stuff. I guess that's as far as I'll go on it. But check it out.
You should watch the movie.
I absolutely see Ratatouille. Have you seen the Key and Peele sketch where a guy makes his own Ratatouille?
No.
I recommend you look that up. That's also a fun time.
I've seen that's Hell's Kitchen parody.
I haven't seen that one yet. Yeah, is that do they do a Gordon Ramsay type guy?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good show. That show. Let's see. Oh, geez, man, we only have 10 minutes left. Another question. Kev asks, do you think that working with a team is easier or more difficult than working alone? Yeah. Have any of you made games entirely by yourself? And if so, how does that compare to working with a team? What's the best size for a team? That sort of thing.
I used to do a lot of hobby dev. Like I was making like a Kid of Cards game by myself back in the day, Kid of Crisp, where And and I personally like working with a team more because after a while, like you might think that you are just the most brilliant person in the world because of the ideas you come up with, and then someone plays it and just takes a fat dump on it, and you're like, oh, and you're just like, why? I'm this monster, like a elephant comes up. Visual for you. So,
get it out of my head.
yeah. So, personally, I think the person working with a team, sometimes you can have that issue of working with a team where, somebody has a different opinion. But because of that, you're also getting so many more eyes on it that are also invested into it, as well, that I think in the end, you're going to come out with a much better project. I don't know. And, working with teams is so fun. Like, it can be challenging, but it's a good challenge as long as you take it that way, You learn so much more. You learn how to deal with people. I mean, really, you learn how to be a better team player in general. And
I honestly don't know how I'd be able to finish a project by myself. Like, if a program did art and everything, it would still be hard to stay motivated, I think, to finish the title. Even, like, as I saw progress and stuff, I think I'd be fighting myself all the time. Like, is this any good? Do I want to do this? Gosh, I wish, you get a certain kind of encouragement with teams, like, and you play off of each other, you bounce ideas off of each other, you come up with solutions together. If you're working by yourself, sometimes you start to push yourself in one direction and you refuse to see any other way to go. And that direction could be so hard and challenging that it could actually stop you from finishing. So I think when you're working with a team, you have a set of weights that kind of balance you a little bit, so that you don't get yourself in a rut, that you don't get yourself pigeonholed in one thought, and you can come up with creative solutions together to make the project great and motivate each other.
Yeah, none of my hobby does.
I want to play that Kid Icarus game though. What was it?
It was pretty cool.
I mean, working with a team is just like any other team sport. There's only so much that you can do by yourself, but you really have to know the strengths and weaknesses of everybody and make sure you go out at together.
Some people could do it though. Don't get me wrong. Some people kill it too. I mean,
Michael Jordan.
Oh, speaking of which, I wanted to show you guys this. I don't know if you played Axiom Verge. The Axiom Verge guy just sent me this shirt. Oh, let me suck in my stomach. Which is really nice of him. Collusion. I'm never going to be able to review Axiom Verge now. I could have kept that a secret.
Dude, that game is good, man. And that guy is like...
He's amazing.
He's very extremely talented. And he is, like... not charismatic, so we all need to speak loud for him. I mean,
he's been on the show, and I personally love him to bits, but he doesn't come off as someone who's like in it to socialize and to win everyone over with.
He's not a salesman. He's
a passion project.
He's just an amazing game dev, and like seriously, people could say whatever the hell they want, man. Like I will scream like crazy for his title. It's beautiful.
And it's nuts. Well, this is the thing I do after work. I just worked on this game for the last couple of years. Looking pretty good. Sony likes it. It's like
he was at the Sony booth at E3, and I was playing it, and I was like, God, this is really good. He's like, thank you. I'm like, wait, this is yours? He's like, yeah. I'm like, really? I'm like,
totally sounds like him. Yeah.
Yeah, you were with me. We met him.
A few years. I work during the day, so it's just kind of a thing I do at night sometimes. I'm just like, dude, what? You still have energy?
He's awesome. Like that game is awesome. Like I really enjoyed playing it at E3. So
it looks
do everything you can for him. That's got to kill it out the gate, man.
Yeah, I hope so. Sony's certainly backing him, but he just wants to make games. He is that's how he communicates best too, and he's so freaking gifted at it. We can only hope that it'll catch on. I think so. Reggie Fils-Aimé liked it. He told me.
Yeah.
So that always helps, I guess. Yeah, Pip is coming to. We should talk a little bit more because we only have 5 minutes left. What is Pip coming to for systems? Nintendo's?
We're leading with Wii U, Steam, PlayStation 4 should be coming shortly after that. Xbox One should be coming shortly after that. If we could go day and date with all 4 of them, we will. We're gonna have to do a 3DS port eventually, so we're not. It wasn't funded for 3DS. It didn't make that stretch goal. What didn't make it stretch goal for Vita? But we're still hoping that when it goes out on the lead systems, that it generates enough revenue that we could put it on handhelds so that everyone could enjoy it. But yeah, so I think I covered the platform. What else you got?
I'm curious about why you chose those platforms, and also it feels too intrusive to ask how much it's going to cost, but if you want to give us a ballpark, I think people would be curious. You made a certain amount on the Kickstarter, but I can't imagine that's how much the game is going to cost. I think Shovel Knight cost like $1 million something to make, and that was just, geez, it's Aaron, Sean, Waz, and Vert. It's pretty much it. Right? Maybe one other person I haven't met.
Can't forget D'Angelo, man. D'Angelo.
No, I've never met D'Angelo. That's the person I don't know. Gosh darn it. Sorry, D'Angelo. But yeah, 4 to 5 people on your game, $1 million. You've got 20. I don't think all 20 of you are working on Pip at this point.
Not all 20 are working on Pip. Like if I do the breakdown on how much we've actually spent on Pip, I'll probably like faint. You know, because I mean, honestly, there's been stuff that works, there's been stuff that doesn't work. We do things to make sure that it's still good. You know, it's going to be the best. But we don't. I try not to keep track of it that much, to be honest. But if we did the internal numbers at the same 10K a man month that Sean kind of, I'm not sure if you saw that Sean posted those numbers on Shovel Knight for Kama Sutra. But if we did the same model, I mean, it's pretty intimidating the amount of money that we had been spending on Pip so far. We raised 65 out of the Kickstarter. We have the PayPal link on our website, www.tictocgames.com. Front page says PayPal if you want to pre-order it. Anything that you basically spend on PayPal goes to our stretch goals that we didn't hit. So there's still like Game Plus mode that we're trying to get to. There's other console ports that we're trying to get to as well. Why we picked those consoles, I think, is because it was a Steam launch. Nintendo got word of it. Nintendo sent us a Wii U dev kit. They said, you should really support us with this title. This is perfect for us. And they wanted us to put on 3DS too. It is a Unity title, which is a middleware solution that we and quite honestly, like, if we ported it with Unity, like, when Unity becomes, hopefully one day Unity will become available on 3DS. If it doesn't become available, we'd still want to do a fresh port because the hardware is slow. So we want it to be optimized and perform perfect for that platform. So that means that we have to do an entire platform conversion, which takes a program about 2 months. I could get really, you know,
2 months?
Well, 4 weeks really to do the actual port, but then also to play it, fine-tune it, make design corrections, because playing from here, when I'm playing from a TV, it's different, so you want to make sure that the levels look right on the smaller screen. Everything's got to look right. So the ported can't just be like a turnkey solution. You're happy with it. We did all the same, language conversion. We want to make sure that the art is optimized for it, that the performance is right, that the play controls don't feel sluggish, that, everything's got to be right for that platform before it goes out on it. So I say 2 months at least to make it feel right on the 3DS. And, one of our programmers, James, who's done porting for 3DS before, is like, no, I could get it done in 4 weeks. It's 2 months.
I wonder if new 3DS, which I'm so sad about still, you just don't stop doing that, Nintendo. I love you. Don't call things new that are going to be new for literally 2 weeks before it's the old new 3DS, and then the new is going to come out later. But anyway, I've heard great things about the new 3DS. I've heard it might be Unity compatible. I've heard that so many people who have said there's just too much work into doing a 3DS port. This we can work with, so I'm very optimistic about.
My only problem with it, like Jeff just, you go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
No. I mean, it's definitely it's substantially more powerful.
Mm.
And so, I mean, that probably opens up new doors as far as Unity support, but, obviously nothing has been announced and we don't know anything about
Yeah,
that
Unity, like, you can't count on it right now because it's what's being rumored, but until you actually have it in your hands. Not to mention, honestly, do I want to just do a flat port to an only new 3DS and then everybody who has an old 3DS is SOL? I don't think so.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I still have to think about everybody who already bought one, right? Not just, oh, here's the new one. It's going to sell like crazy out the gate, but not everybody could go buy the new one. So
Sure.
ideally for us, we do the platform conversion, and we're going to have to tackle those performance issues anyway. And it just means that on the 3DS New, it's just going to run that much better, right? Just making sure that bottom, that baseline is good, of the 3DS XL and going from there. So or the 3DS.
Yeah, that kind of inherent concern for the consumer and also for the most amount of people who could potentially play your game. That's something that I think a lot of people can feel, and as they get to know you, get to know your game, I think they're going to see that just in the DNA of what you're doing. It's so hard when they don't know you yet. You've got screenshots and like a little video. But now they know you. At least the people who watch the show, and thank you everyone for watching the show, knows Jeff Marketreach. Where can they follow you all individually on the tweeters? Because you're all twitting on your own ways.
Go ahead. Oh, at Chef Luke, CHEFFLUKE.
Because you're a chef! How did I forget that? You are a chef. Ratatouille.
I'm at Mark Yay TTG, so that's MarcyAyTTG.
Like Mark Yay Tic Toc Games.
Yeah.
And I'm just at Sharif, SHEREEF 007, I think. Yeah.
007. Sharif 007.
I don't really have a lot of followers. Just follow at Tic Toc Games.
Here's
That's really the. Here's Ross. That'd be hilarious. At Tic Toc Games, which is just @TICTOC Games, one word. Our website is www.tictocgames.com, TICTOCgames.com. And our Facebook
Kickstarter's still up. Your PayPal is up. It'll be collusion, so I can't. If I back it, then I can kind of never review it or really talk about it in any critical way because I'll be part of the development team.
Back it, dude. Back it.
Yeah, these are the questions I have to ask now. But now I just want to be a villager in your town. What's that? Is that any more of those left?
Like when you want that again, some inclusive thing.
I don't know. That probably is. Maybe there will be a guy on there that's called Sup.
Bones? There could be a skeleton named Sup Bones, and I am a bald
skeleton named Sup Bones. Dude, that could be cool. I think we still have it available on PayPal.
Yeah.
But we only have a limited amount left, right? And it's like, how much is it?
What is that? We're bad.
We're on the website. Sorry.
Yeah, they can Google it. You don't have to Google it in your mind for them. They'll do it with their computers.
It's over 100. It starts at over 100.
That's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, we got to make the art. We got to animate. We got to put the catchphrase in there. We got to make sure that it works inside the games. Like in terms of that your character has something cool to do in it.
And you're in a game. I mean, really.
Yeah, one that's probably going to also be not quite all-star, but a lot of other awesome video game characters in it too. Pretty.
That's the thing. Like, who needs a tombstone? You're in a game.
Well,
yeah. Die happy at that point.
Your lies go.
Well, as for me, I am at TronNots on Twitter. You can watch the show later on YouTube, youtube.com/SupHolmesShow. You can listen to it later on iTunes and Libsyn. Just Google those. Can never get those links quite right. It's always a bunch of dashes and numbers. Jeez, guys, thanks so much. Really appreciate you being on the show. Hopefully it's not the last time.
That was so awesome that you had us on the show. That's so weird. It's cool.
It was in my mind the whole time. It's just, how can I make it happen? And here you are. Wonderful.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
Time.